Among Us went from 300 players to 400,000 players in the matter of a few months, then fell off harder than this cat. I'm gonna be looking at how the game became popular, why it lost its popularity, and what the future holds for Among Us. Among Us was Innerslot's first game on PC, and after its release in 2018, it never became that popular. It was up until 2020, when many streamers and YouTubers started to play the game. This caused the game to grow exponentially and even reached 100 million downloads. Before we see how and why the game met its eventual demise, we have to look at why it became popular in the first place, almost 2 years after its release. In 2020, everybody was stuck alone in their homes due to the pandemic, and because of this, Among Us served as a perfect social deduction and interaction game to fill the lonely void in people's hearts. This collaboration between players was further supported by the chat features, and many players used voice chat while playing the game. The biggest initial cause of the game's surge in popularity was of course the thousands of content creators playing the game, showing it to their hundreds of millions of viewers. And these viewers were able to download the game and convince their friends to get it because it was completely free to play, which was a major reason for the game's high player count. And at the end of the day, if we look at the game from a critical viewpoint, it's fun to play and easy to understand as it's based on a popular genre but with a unique visual style. The quick rounds and initial variety of the game paired with the number of devices it was playable on made sure the game was as accessible as possible. Due to this popularity, the game cemented itself in meme culture along with the other popular bean game at the time, Fall Guys. There were mods, songs, memes, fan games, and even entire shows. It was an extremely fun experience with friends when everybody was distant, but this wouldn't last for long. Soon enough, the popularity of the game started to dwindle. The game lost 82% of its player base in the matter of a few months. So what exactly happened? Firstly, with any online game that quickly gains traction, there are the obvious problems of hackers and the lack of capacity to handle so many players. Innerslot dealt with the latter pretty well, but both were still major problems and they ruined the gaming experience for a lot of players. And the variety I was talking about before quickly got old, and Innerslot, who initially had plans to create a sequel for the game, quickly diverted their efforts into creating more maps, features, cosmetics, and roles for the game. But they still weren't quick enough. When you look at the graph for the player count in PC, you can see the sudden bump in March 2021 after a continued decline, and this perfectly corresponds with the release of the airship map. This supports the theory that the lack of new content slowly caused the game to die. The slow decline continued even after the airship's release. Players also just eventually got bored of the game, partly due to the lack of variety and also because more popular choices came around and Among Us gameplay had become stale. One could argue that Among Us was a gimmick game and that the game being forgotten after its short moment of popularity was inevitable. But that doesn't mean that the studio didn't try to keep their game afloat. We'll be going over some of their attempts to see what changes they've made to Among Us after all this time. This video is sponsored by my kidney. Please subscribe so that I don't have to sell my other one too. The first major change is that they fixed the hacker issue and player capacities, and there are even 15 player lobbies now. On mobile, some things I've noticed are that you can't use free chat anymore without signing in, whereas earlier that wasn't the case, and now you have this quick chat selection thing if you're not signed in. They've released Among Us VR with a total of 2 maps and proximity voice chat, and Among Us is now available on essentially every single platform, and they've still kept up with the updates and collaborations with other properties. The most important changes are the addition of new roles, maps, and a game mode. They have a total of 5 maps right now, the 3 which were in the game before, which are the Skeld, Mira HQ, and Polars, along with the airship. There's also a map named the Fungle which was released about a year ago. The biggest change from the heyday of the game is the fact that there are a total of 9 roles right now, compared to the 2 we had before. In addition to the crewmate and imposter, the player can also be the shapeshifter, which is an alternate imposter who can take the form of other players, the engineer who can vent, and there's the guardian angel, who's a ghost who can protect other crewmates from being killed. The scientist can access the vitals of players at any time. And there are 3 roles that came out just a few months ago. There's the phantom, who's an imposter that can disappear. There's the noisemaker, who sends out an alert when killed. And finally, there's a tracker, who can track players. Although some might see this as too much, I think the new roles are good as it adds much needed variety to the game, allows for many more opportunities and situations within the game, just like how the shapeshifter and engineer make it hard to know who to trust. And also, because of all these roles, all the crewmates don't have to just do their tasks, and this gives most of them something else to do too. Finally, there's also a new game mode called hide and seek. Every player has a small circle of vision and the seeker has to explore the map and find all the hiders. The hiders can bend and hide for a limited number of times. It's fun but gets boring after a while, and I prefer the original game mode, though there are some people who really like hide and seek. So that's all for the new features in Among Us. I believe that these additions by the developers have helped maintain their current player base, and it's good to see Inneslot still working hard on the game, even though it might not be as popular as before. So we have to ask ourselves what the future of Among Us is. From their roadmap of 2024, we can see that they have more quality of life changes planned along with more collabs. Something really surprising I learned was that there's an official Among Us TV show in production. Luckily, it is going to be animated, so we won't have another Minecraft situation on our hands. The show seems to have a pretty good voice cast too, and the developers are involved in the making of the show. I think an Among Us show could be an amazing series of deception and humor if done well. I'm excited to see what it's going to be. One thing about the studio that I like is the fact that they have a fund to support indie game developers, which they themselves are. That's all there is for Among Us as of now. When I say dead, I obviously mean it in a relative sense, as the game still has around 7,000 concurrent players on just PC most of the time. And that's still a pretty huge number, and that's not even considering mobile players. But the game isn't truly dead, but it has lost a majority of its player base. On a more personal note, this game honestly provided hundreds of hours of entertainment and fun with friends during the lockdown. Plus, we got this absolute banger of a song.